about to see is totally classified.
They could be anywhere.
It's a robot, you know, like a super advanced robot. It's probably Japanese.
Greetings, Cornerstone Family Church. Today you embark on a journey that can transform your lives. My question to you is, are you ready to be transformed?
How many of you guys like the fact that Optimus Prime knows who you are? For the 6 of you that are happy about that, I join with you in your celebrations. Oh my goodness. How many of you guys have been enjoying so far our year at the movies at Cornerstone Family Church? Creation, Romans 1 says that all creation prophesies of Him. And even though Hollywood thinks they're doing all kinds of other things, they don't realize how they're being used by God and the messages that are getting across. How many of you guys were here last week for The Matrix? Pastor Tim did a pretty good job? Should I leave more often? See, I painted them in a corner. There was no way they could answer that and not get in trouble. There was no way. Whether they said yes or no, they were in trouble. Good to be back this morning. And we're starting a new series on Transformers. How many of you guys have seen the movie? Transform movies. Our tech guys are awesome. Trust me. We're working them this year. They're going to earn their pay this year. So we're going to double their salary. 0 times 2 is? So we'll start putting 2 zeros on that check. Transformers is one of those movies that started long before it was a movie. I believe it started as a cartoon, and then out of the cartoon came the toys. And the first time I saw the movie, I was kind of oblivious to the fact of where Transformers came from. And so we were on a trip somewhere. We were coming back home. We stopped in Charlotte. Our hotel was right down from a big theater. And I said, you know, I'm going to walk down here and see a movie tonight. And the previews of that Transformers movie looked really good. I didn't know there was a cartoon about it. And I didn't know there were toys. I do not have a little boy. And at that point, I don't think I had a little girl. Or if I did, she was a baby. And so I walked down to watch the movie, not realizing what it was about. And so the first time I sat through the movie, I just wanted to kick myself. It's like, oh, I can't believe I just paid money for this. I was like the oldest person in the theater. As young as I am, I was still the oldest one in the theater. And I realized that all these kids around me, kids that grew up with the cartoon, and they were excited about the movie coming out, and they had played with the Transformer toys. And so the first time I saw the movie, I didn't see a whole lot in it past Megan Fox. Look, she's secure in her marriage. She's not worried about me. She knows I can do better than Megan Fox. I've already proved it. Plus those tattoos when she gets old. Yeah, you got the visual, didn't you? Tattoos look one way on smooth skin, another way on wrinkled skin. It's like, what did that used to be? You know, it was a pirate when you were 18, and now that you're 74, the pirates become the ship now, and it's on rough waters. So later on, the movie came out again on TV, and it's like, okay, I'm going to sit and I'm going to watch this. And that's when the spiritual value of the movie just began to pop off the screen to me. It's your classic good versus evil type of movie. And isn't it interesting how many movies are based on that whole plot. There's good, there's evil, and it's innate in humanity. We know that good should prevail over evil. And this movie really is about that. And of course, the central figures of this movie is the Autobots. And they would appear to be robots, but these are robots who are more than just robots. They were creatures who occupied a planet called Cybertron. Is that right? Cybertron. And the Autobots went to war with the Decepticons. I had it wrote down here because I knew I couldn't remember that. And so they're fighting over the Allspark, which is in the cube. And this is the power source there's always a power source, right? And you can do good or evil with the power source. The power source is made to do good. And as the arch villain found out at the end of the first movie, that if you didn't have the right heart to accept the power, it was just destructive. And so it's your good versus evil. You've got your Autobots, they come to Earth. Now they're saddling up with humanity, and they see a lot in humanity worth saving. Optimus Prime, of course, is the hero of the good guys, and though some would say Bumblebee is the hero, if you know what I'm talking about. I'm a Bumblebee fan myself. Optimus Prime in the movie is a type of Christ, and Optimus Prime is the one who becomes willing to sacrifice his own life to save not just the Autobots are left, but the Earth and the human beings. He is willing to sacrifice his own life as they're battling over the cube here that has the Allspark. And it's a storyline that is actually thread all through the Bible. Not just the movie script, but all through the Bible, as good as trying to prevail. But the movie is based on these Autobots that can transform. And if you saw the movie, you know, what appeared to be an old Camaro, and later on a new Camaro, was actually a robot. It was Bumblebee. And Optimus Prime was a really fancy rig. How many of you guys know what I'm talking about? But let's show them a clip of Optimus Prime here so they'll understand how this transformation thing works. And so you see, the whole concept is that something can transform into something else. What appeared to be in the movie, whether it was the good guys or the bad guys, you saw trucks, some cool trucks, and cars, and army tanks, and jets, and all kinds of things that actually was the transformation from something else. And so the concept of the movie is transforming. You could be this, but you can transform into this. You can be just this, but you can transform into that. And it's an interesting storyline because it happens to be the first storyline of the Bible. The first story of the Bible is about transformation. Isn't that interesting? We have the story of God stepping into a scenario, a universe that isn't very functional. It's dark. The word, if you've read the book, and I'm going to deviate a little from the book, so don't think I'm just going to rehearse any chapters of the book today, but if you've read the book, you understand the terminology there and how bleak of a picture it painted of creation before God stepped into it. And the words there, when you put them together, literally mean the word dysfunctional. It was a dysfunctional situation. And it was bleak, and it was despairing, and it was chaotic. It was depressing. And God steps into something that has no function, no purpose. One of the words there is void. It was a void. How can something be filled with void? I mean, think about that. Logically, literally thinking, and it was filled with void. But now, if we think more emotionally and spiritually about that picture, how many of you guys can relate to being filled with a void? I just got a big void in my life. I just feel empty inside. And so God is painting this picture of just the bleakest of the bleak, the worst of the worst, dysfunctional. And God steps in, and over time, God transforms dysfunctionality into functionality. something that has no purpose into something that now is producing fruit. Even in perpetual cycles, seed is reproducing after its own kind. And so we have the first story of God is a story of transformation. The first thing that God wanted to show us in the Bible, He wanted to show us how He could take one thing and transform it into something else. He takes in day one, He takes creation that is filled with darkness. Verse 2 of Genesis 1 says that darkness was hovering over the deep. And God steps into it and He says, let there be light. And He transforms it. He transforms darkness into light. And with each day, God is transforming something. He transforms something very ugly into something very beautiful, the Garden of Eden. He takes something that has no purpose and He transforms it into something that's very fruitful, very productive. And God doesn't just stop with that. God steps into a sixth day, and on the sixth day of creation, He does the most amazing transformation act so far. He takes dust and He transforms it into a living, breathing human being. The first story of God is a story of transformation. It was the first picture that God wanted to show us about our world, our life, the possibilities of transformation. That it doesn't matter how it starts, there is a potential for it to end up something completely different. And throughout the stories of the Bible, we see stories of transformation. God is always transforming something. He's always changing something. Isn't it interesting that the first story of God in Genesis, the story of transformation, that Jesus, God in flesh, shows up on the scene, and His first miracle is a story of transformation. He takes water and He transforms it into wine. He takes something that is tasteless, it's not beautiful to look at, it's not sparkly, it's bland. It's kind of lifeless. And Jesus transforms it into what those people said was the best wine they'd ever tasted. It was chaos transformed to the Garden of Eden all over again. Throughout Jesus' ministry, it's a storyline of transformation. He transforms blind eyes into eyes that can see. He transforms crippled legs into legs that can walk. He transforms the diseased flesh of a leper into healthy skin. He transforms a prostitute into what should have been called a prophetess, because that was the revelation knowledge she began to walk in of the Christ. Story after story of transformation. He transforms 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes into a meal for thousands. God redundantly paints the picture from cover to cover that His story and His story with human beings is a story of transformation. That God can take whatever is there and He can transform it into something incredible. Look at this verse in Romans chapter 12. It's one of the more popular verses that deals with transformation. And there's a word here that I want to show you. It says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God." This is your spiritual act of worship. But let's just stop there before you cycle that next verse up. I want you to understand what Paul is saying. He's saying you need to bring yourself as you are, the condition that you're in, and you need to bring it to God and be ready to give it to God. Bring your very bodies even as a living sacrifice. How many understands how the sacrifices worked in the Bible? You took living flesh that now was dead, and you place it on an altar where it is consumed with fire. And that's the analogy that Paul is playing on. He says, take your very bodies, your very lives, and bring it as a sacrifice. And be ready to give it to God. Why? Because if you bring it and you give it to God, God is going to do something different with it. Let's move on to verse 2. It says, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world. In other words, stop doing it the way you've been doing it. Because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep having what you've been having. Don't conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be transformed. Be changed. Be transformed. Then when you're transformed, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good and pleasing and perfect will. He's saying, then you will finally understand God's plans for your life. What God had purposed for you when you were in your mother's womb. God had plans for you. But you're never going to know what they are until you allow God to take your state, your condition, wherever it's at, and transform it into something else. This word transformed is it's a really neat word. It's the Greek word metamorpho. And maybe some of you have already guessed what word today we have pulled from that Greek word metamorpho in this context. It's the word metamorphosis. And what comes to mind when you think of the process of metamorphosis? Changing a worm into a butterfly. One of the great writers of the Bible said, "Oh, what a worm I am." You know, a worm is the bottom feeders of creation, right? Right? Groveling in the dirt, groveling in the dust. What a coincidence that God would take such an in-your-face example in creation and put it out there for us to have to see, study, talk about, and be amazed by. That this worm can spin itself into a cocoon, stay there for a while, in a process that really can't be seen to the natural eye, but when it comes out, it becomes one of the most beautiful things that we've ever imagined. Is there anything more beautiful than a butterfly? When we were, where were we at last year where there were butterflies everywhere? Somewhere we were at. We keep the trail hot, and I can't remember where we've been. We were somewhere, and they were just monarch butterflies everywhere. And I'm a fan of butterflies. I'm amazed by butterflies because they're so delicate and so dainty, and it's a reminder of how fragile beauty can be. And we have a butterfly bush right outside our dining room window. It kind of juts out on the back of the house, and there's we intentionally put a butterfly bush right there because while we're eating, it's just covered with all kinds of butterflies. It just makes dinner so much more enjoyable to watch that view. The metamorphosis, the process of change and transformation, turning a worm into a beautiful butterfly. It's the story of creation all over again. The story of transformation. It seems like there is no topic that God has stressed more in the Bible than the topic of transformation. The process of metamorpho. God's ability to take a condition, no matter how bleak, no matter how chaotic, no matter how dysfunctional, no matter how dark, and turn it into the most beautiful, functional, fruitful thing you can imagine. God, right out of the gate, begins to show us this picture. Transformation, transformation, transformation. There's several lessons of transformation that I learn when I read the Bible, whether it be the story of early creation, whether it be the story of a leper, whether it be the story of water being turned to wine. Whatever the story is, I learn with every story of transformation some simple facts. The first is this: life never starts out the way you want it. Never. It's unrealistic, and we put unfair pressures on ourselves, especially in America, because we operate in such pseudo-realities. Life never starts out the way you want it. There's not such thing as getting up one day, going and opening the mailbox, and suddenly your new life is in the mailbox. There's no such thing as going and buying a lottery ticket and picking some numbers or scratching off a ticket, and suddenly there on that little ticket is your new life. It doesn't exist. In America, our expectations have become very twisted, even perverted in how we view life and what we deserve. How appropriate that you showed that video a little while ago, Dan. This guy saying, I'm the consumer, I'm the customer, man. It's all about me, and man, I'm collecting, and man, I'm purchasing, and I'm surrounding myself with comforts and things to make my life better. That's your classic picture of America. I learned through the Bible, though, from the very beginning, life never starts out the way you want it to be. That's why we dream. That's why we have vision. That's why we sit and we ponder. And when you meet someone, you fall in love, you begin to ponder and dream together of the kind of life that you want. I remember when we were dating, and what a sentimental journey this past Sunday was. And we ended up getting down there earlier because they've changed the roads so much since we used to live down there that it was 2 hours quicker getting there. And so we got there much faster than we were expecting. And so we went on to Lakeland and spent a big chunk of Sunday there just being back on that campus and just the memories. And just that's where I met her. And we went back and we took some pictures exactly in the same places that we have pictures from the old days. Only she couldn't get in the tree this time, so I took a picture at the base of the tree. She could get in the tree, but there was a security guard there. Let me clarify. You all thought I meant she couldn't climb anymore. That's not what I meant. We went back to the building that used to be the cafeteria, which is now something else, and there was a corner of a sidewalk there, and they've replaced all the sidewalks with these really neat-looking brick tile type pathways everywhere. Just incredible, just beautiful campus. The campus is like a Garden of Eden. It's just incredible now. Went back there and it's not a square corner anymore. It's a round corner there now. And my wife, not me, but my wife said, the corner's round now and so is your wife. She said it, not me. I would have never said that. I only repeat it out of respect for her because anything my wife says is worth repeating. See, I'm getting wise in my own age here. I'm learning how to not get in the doggy house. We'll see about that. But I remember those early days and just when we met and we took Hannah back to the dorm where my wife lived, and that's basically an empty dorm now because it's basically a new campus, and a lot of the old buildings they're not even used anymore. Went back behind where there was a lake. The whole campus is surrounded by lakes, and the little bench was not there anymore. Where I sat her down and broke up with her one time, and then came back the next morning and said, "You know what I said last night? Forget I said anything." And I was trying to show Hannah that spot, but I began to notice many spots on that campus where her and I used to sit and we used to talk, and we used to dream together. We used to talk about our life, things we wanted to accomplish. In the later days that we were on that campus, after I had truly given my life to the Lord, we would sit and we would talk about ministry dreams, ministry vision. Most of it revolved around music back in those days, but it was dreams and where we wanted to live and the kind of houses that we had dreamed of, and we dreamed together. Both of us were poorer than dirt. I look back now and I don't even know how I went to school there. She had been on her own for a long time, working, putting herself through school. I forget how many years it took us after we got married before we finally paid off all of our school debt. It was just incredible. And it was tough, man. What we wanted, we did not have starting out. And I talk to young couples, and especially in premarital counseling, I try to pick their brain and try to figure out what is it that you're thinking is about to happen here. What is it you're expecting? We've got this thought that everything comes easier than it really does in life. We've got this concept that we're all somehow deserving. There is nothing that's ever happened in my lifetime in America that scares me more than the socialistic type ideas that are being pushed in America right now. Because it's unreasonable. It doesn't work. Go ask Mother Russia. They will tell you it doesn't work. You can't level playing fields where everybody gets equal amounts of stuff. God made it very clear, if you work, you eat, and if you don't work, you don't eat. That's how life works. And to try to level a playing field and do what sounds good on paper, the Robin Hood effect, and rob the rich to bring the poor back up to a higher standard where everybody is the same again, it's unrealistic. And it just speaks of a society that will at some point collapse just like Russia did. Just like every communist nation has ever done with those ideologies. And it seduces us into the concept that we were born and we get a certain age and suddenly someone is supposed to start handing us everything we want in life, start handing us our dreams. And it's not realistic. Dreams only happen through hard work, process, and time. Do you notice that God started with nothing but dysfunctional chaos and darkness, and it took time for Him to process that into something beautiful and something functional? Day 1, day 2, day 3, and He was trying to tell us something. You can't change anything overnight. You will only frustrate yourself if you think you can. You can change ashes into something beautiful, but it takes time. All these stories of transformation tells me, first thing, life never starts out how I want it to be. And we've got to be careful in America, because when our life is not what we want it to be, we instantly go through all kinds of emotional things, and we get angry at life. We get angry at God, and we get angry at family, and we get angry at the people that have hired us on our jobs because they're not promoting us fast enough or paying us enough, and we just get angry in life, and we get disillusioned with how it's supposed to work. Because it's not what we thought it was supposed to be. So something's wrong, something's broke, somebody's at fault. I learned through the stories of the Bible that life never starts out where I want it to be. But the second thing that I learned here is the power does exist to change it. And there are no exceptions to the rule. Every story of the Bible reminds us that no matter how the condition starts, there's a power that exists to change it into what you want it to be, what you dreamed that it would be. Don't you know that God in His imagination dreamed of the Garden of Eden long before it ever existed physically? The animals of creation. God didn't just say, let there be animals, and then He sat there on the edge of His throne to see, now what will exist, what will it look like? No, God imagined every animal. He imagined the giraffe. Animal Kingdom this past week, probably one of my favorite parts was the Serengeti safari there, and just getting on the truck and going out and seeing the animals in a natural type habitat, and just looking at just the diversity. The different types of antelopes and water bucks and stuff with their different shaped horns and just sizes, and the spots, and looking at the leopards and their spots, and the zebras and the giraffes with their stretched out necks, and just the humor of these big old hippos as they were standing under the water there, and just standing there under the water. That's all they do all day long. The sense of humor that God displayed in His imagination as He created not just the animals, but the nature of the animals, the nature of an ostrich to hide its head in the sand, and the humor of the duck-billed platypus that appears just to be leftover parts stuck together, and just like, I've got these parts left and all to do with some. You see God's imagination, you see God's dreams being realized. The things that God thought about and pondered and meditated on and imagined. It's coming to pass over time now. He's producing this. Story after story of the Bible, where a story starts out in this condition, and it's not a very good condition, but at the end of the story, it's a great condition. The cripple who was outside the gate beautiful, and Peter and John go to pray, and He's crippled and he's never walked, and he's sitting there with his little tin cup out, and he's begging alms, alms for the poor. And Peter and John comes by and says, we don't have any gold or silver to give you today, but we do have something to give you. And it was a power of transformation. And they shared that power with the cripple. The Bible says the cripple jumped to his feet. They pulled him to his feet, and he began to jump and dance and leap around. He went from being a cripple who could just only crawl on the ground to being someone who was leaping and dancing about. What an extreme. What transformation. The stories the Bible teaches that life never starts out where we want it to be, but there is a power that exists to change it. This power that exists, we also learn through these stories, is not some abstract, elusive power. But from the first story of the Bible, and as the sequence of stories follows, we find a common, reoccurring theme. This power that produces transformation is always found in one place, in the very words of God. God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And he said, let the land and the waters separate. And they did. And within each day of creation, as God speaks, something changes. Throughout the stories of the Bible, especially the stories of Jesus, through the very spoken words of God, life changes. Life changes. Life never starts out where you want it to, but there is a power that exists to change it into exactly what you want it to be, and that power is found in the very words of God. I learned those three things through these transformation stories, and the fourth thing that I learned is that when creation accepts those words, change does happen. The Word of God is presented in the Bible as seed. And we are the earth. And when the earth receives the seed, incredible transforming things happen. But Jesus made very clear that this seed, in one parable he said, this seed, which is the very Word of God, he said, when it's thrown to the earth doesn't always receive it. He said, sometimes it lands on stony ground. That would represent hard hearts. That could represent hearts that are here today that came to church, but something has happened, whether it be a broken heart, a disappointment, something you've carried, a wound for many years, or just the fact that you've been out there living a life outside of the life of God. Your heart has grown cold, it's grown hard, and now the Word of God that might be transforming the person 3 seats down from you might just be hitting you and bouncing off. And you might come Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, and you might be one of those people that the seed is there, but it's never changing you. It's not because there's not seed hitting your ground. It's not because there's not someone sowing that seed into your ground. It's because your ground is not receiving. You're not hearing it. You're not receiving the seed, the words of God. Jesus said that sometimes that the seed, the word, it goes into ground that's just too shallow. And so then the sun comes out and it gets hot. It's talking about how life can just bake you sometimes. And it just withers and it dies. And it's talking about people who they receive the seed in the moment. And it really does land. And it begins to stir them emotionally. And in that moment, they're just like, yes, yes, yes. This is me. I want this, Lord. And they're very sincere. But then they walk out, and because their soil is shallow. Their soil is shallow because they really never get connected into God, where the soil gets deep enough to be able to handle the seed. Let me just tell you the way it is, guys. You can't just pick and choose you when you want to come to church and be in the presence of God and be where the seed of God is being thrown out and expect your life to change. It's not realistic. In the story of the first century church in Acts, there was incredible miracles of transformation happening in Jerusalem daily. But the Bible also says they were meeting together daily. They were in the temple courts. They were in each other's homes. There was just kingdom stuff happening in their life. Every day, their life was somehow integrated into the kingdom. Just the kingdom was always happening in them and all around them. And so they had signs and wonders and miracles and great evangelism and soul winning. It was just incredible. We pick and choose when we come to church. And nowadays in America, studies have showed that if a person comes to church 2 times a month, whether that, any combination, Sundays and Wednesday nights, 2 times a month, then that person considers that they are a faithful part of that local church. And we'll take you whenever we can get you. But I just want you to understand, you will always be that person Jesus talked about with shallow soil. When you're here, the words will move you and will stir you. And in that moment, you will want that more than the next breath. Because then the next Sunday you're not here. The next time you're very hit and miss. And so now your soil stays shallow. And then so it doesn't take much of anything then for life to come out and just bake that thing. And it withers. Jesus said that some of us are the ground that the seed hits it, it goes into the ground, but there's so many thorns and weeds and stuff there that when it tries to grow, the thorns choke it out. That's a story of people who they are receiving the seed of God, but they're also getting all kinds of other crappy seed thrown in their soil too. That's why, I'm a grace guy. I'm a grace guy, and I'm not a very superstitious person. There's a whole lot of stuff the church told me was wrong to do that I found is just fine to do. It had nothing to do with God. But there's just some things that still are just realities. You can't go clubbing on Friday and Saturday night and hang out in those places and be part of that culture and part of that world, and then come in here and receive the seed on Sunday mornings and expect that thing to not get choked out. It's going to happen. You can't serve God and mammon. You can't serve God in the things that mammon provide for us that is a distraction to what God's trying to do. That's why, no one loves recreation more than we do. We've got our annual adventure out of the way now. Now we can look forward to vacation, because that was not vacation. In fact, if I have to go back there again, I will have to be sedated. I'll have to be. I did not realize till on the way home, when then we were Googling information, that we went to Disney during the single busiest week of the year. Some of you Disney people should have told me that. I hold you responsible. We went to 4 different Disney parks, and we went to Magic Kingdom on Tuesday, and found out on the way home that day was the busiest day of the busiest week of the whole year. Did you all know that? Thank God for the Mutterbacks. Isn't it cool when you get to Disney and find a Cornerstone family down there? And they have all kinds of fast pass paraphernalia that get you to the front of the line? What a blessing. We had a blast with you guys. Sometimes God's got to take you 1,000 miles away to get to know people. You ever notice that? The monorail broke down trying to get into Magic Kingdom, so 100,000 people were trying to get on 2 ferries. That's got headlines written all over it. Ferry sinks at Disney and 432 people die. But it was a blast. It was our adventure, not vacation, adventure. We like those kind of things. We like it. But I'm always trying to keep myself in check and make sure that my adventures in life, my recreations, my amusements do not choke out the words of God in my life. God set the example, 7 days in creation. 7th day was full of rest. 6 days was full of casting seed to the earth. There's an equation there. There's a formula there. There's a scale there. God's trying to tell us, I've got rest planned for you. I want you to go out. I want you to relax. I want you to have fun. But you're going to have to stay focused here. And you're going to have to make sure that most of your days are being filled with my words infusing into your life. I learned through these lessons of transformation that life never starts out where I want it to be. But the power does exist to change that. There can be a metamorphosis in my life. That power is in God's words. And when I allow that seed to come into my earth, everything changes. Anyone here ever used to live in Florida? Wow, a whole bunch of you guys. If you've ever lived in Florida, pick any part of Florida. It doesn't matter. Here, undeveloped territories of West Virginia is filled with woods, right? Forests, trees. You go in there with chainsaws and you cut it all down. You push a few stumps out with the bulldozer and you start building. It's not how it works in Florida. In Florida, if you just want to pull off the side of the road going down I-95 and take a little walk, you better have a machete. Because it is jungle. It's just jungle. And it's low jungle. It's mostly palmetto pines. You can't walk through that stuff. It's land. I've never seen land more unusable when you first look at it than in Florida. Yeah, you don't have to grade away any mountains or anything, but you do have to build a bottom in it. Because it's quite sandy and it's really not made for foundational things. That land down there that Walt purchased covertly without anyone knowing what it was so that he wouldn't get taken to the cleaners. It's like 50 square miles of the Disney property. I think it's out like 47 square miles, something like that. If you've been down to the Disney property, is Epcot, Animal Kingdom, Magic Kingdom, Hollywood, what's the water thing? Yeah. That one didn't seem like the right kind of year to go to do the water stuff. And then you've got all your Disney theme hotels, and then where we stayed was the Hotel Plaza area, a bunch of hotels right there by downtown Disney, and all this property. Most of that property was not developed even when we were down there. And if you drove through that area of I still call that area Kissimmee. I understand it's Lake Buena Vista or something, I don't know what it is. We still call that the Kissimmee side of Orlando. If you saw that place, it just did not seem like there could ever be anything done there that could be beautiful, entertaining, pleasant on any level. Now, when you go to Disney, you have to admit, whether you love it or you just tolerate it, you have to admit it's pretty impressive. Especially what they do to the castle for the Memories show at night. What they do there is just, I don't even understand how they're doing what they're doing. It's very impressive. The things they have done, the technology and the architecture, the things they've done all through there, it's the happiest place on earth. For most people. Unless you go Tuesday after President's Day. And then we still have fun. There is no story, physically, no object lesson that I've seen that portrays the power of transformation more than that place. Because they have taken an area that is just, to me, would be the hardest area to ever try to develop, and they've done one of the most incredible things in creation there. I mean, they have created the Garden of Eden out of chaos and dysfunctionality there. It's incredible. As I'm looking at that, and I know what that land is like, and if you look at the land all around it, it's unusable. You see that power of God that has been transferred to humanity, that power to transform. You don't like the way the land works? Transform it. You don't like the way your house looks? Remodel it. Transform it. You don't like your hair? Go buy some new hair. Transform it. Get you some plugs, or get you a weave, or I'd get a weave, but I'm like Pastor Tim, I don't have anything for my weave to hook into. You got to weave it into something, right? I've seen guys get those plugs before. You don't even want to go there. I better leave all that alone. I might be getting ready to hurt somebody's feelings. You don't like your clothes? Go buy new ones. You don't like your look? Transform yourself. Decide how you want to transform it. That's why they make makeup and all kinds of stuff. Transform yourself. God has given us the power of transformation, and we're not allowing it to happen in our lives. We're struggling to be transformed because we're rejecting the words of God. I'm watching as a pastor people not having what they want in life. They're not where they want to be. And 5 years later, they're still not where they want to be. And I'm looking at this going, what's going on here? I know we're preaching a transforming word here. I know that the power of God is here to be transformed. And I see some who are being transformed at the speed of light. In the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, a passage you'll probably hear next week, just the power that transformation can have. And the momento. There's a word there that portrays the splitting of an atom, actually. In that passage, talks about how the power of God can come in and begin to transform something. And look at people who are struggling in their marriages. And 5 years later, it's still the same struggles. And I'm saying, what's wrong? They're in an environment conducive for transformation. Why aren't they transforming? And you can blame it on me, you can blame it on the church, you can blame it on God, you can blame it on your husband, you can blame it on your wife, you can blame it on you don't have a good enough job, live in the right house, have the right car. There's only one problem. The earth is not receiving the seed. You're hearing it, but you're not setting yourself up to be able to take that seed and put it in the soil and nourish that thing and let it grow. I'm watching some people come in, and they're coming in with addictions and all kinds of stuff. I mean, just stuff that's got them in bondage. And I'm watching within weeks how their life is just transforming. 2 years later, you're ready to stick them in the pulpit and let them preach or something. They've evolved so quick. I'm watching other people with the same addictions. 5 years later, still wrestling with the same bondage. What's wrong with us? The transforming power of God is here, and we're not allowing it to happen. Being on that campus reminded me of two of the three most incredible things that have ever happened in my life. Hannah's number 3. She completes my trinity of most memorable things in my life. The other two happened on that campus. I met that woman, I fell in love, and my life's never been the same. And it's all on that same campus. I met God. I began to fall in love with Him. I can relate to the Apostle Paul, who is just a dysfunctional mess. He has an encounter with light, just like in early creation. And it begins to process in his life. And not overnight, it probably was about a 2 to 3 year period between that encounter with light that Paul actually became an apostle. But it was quite a transformation. I know what it's like to be transformed from being in bondage to alcohol and the whole lifestyle that comes with that. Being transformed from that into your pastor. I know that it works. I know that it can begin to work very quick. My wife will tell you, when I met her, I was a messed up dude. We went on this other campus and just kind of went around it while we were there at South Florida, which is also in Lakeland, South Florida University. And it's a Methodist school, and I didn't know that. So I get down there, I'm at Southeastern Bible College at Southeastern University. I'm Assembly of God School, and I'm getting down, the first thing I got to do, man, I need to buy some dope. And so I have painkillers. I'm selling painkillers because I'm not into pills, but I like to smoke dope, and so I'm selling the painkillers so I can go find someone to sell me some pot. And so I'm driving around. I see this other school over here, and I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't bother to ask anyone what kind of school is that, so I'm wandering all over the campus saying, yeah, you guys know where I can buy some reefer? And these kids are just looking at me. It's like, what? And finally this one guy said, hey man, you know where I can get some reefer right here? The guy said, you do know this is a Bible college campus, don't you? It's like, No, see ya. Like, I'm striking out everywhere I go here. I can't sling a dead cat in the city without hitting a Bible college campus. And just that whole lifestyle, just that whole messed up lifestyle. But the night I had my encounter with light, and I laid down on that stage in that chapel, and I said, it's yours. I bring my body as a living sacrifice, and I lay it before you. I'm telling you, it was just 2 or 3 weeks later, I'm sitting with her, and we're dreaming, man. We're talking ministry stuff, and then that semester ended, and I'm back home, and I'm gathering up all my musician buddies, and I'm pulling from here and there, man. We're bringing guys in, we're trying to, and we've got a band together, man, and we're out there, and we're touring. I mean, a year after I got back, we were out there doing stuff, man, and making records, and within a year and a half, playing with the biggest names that was out there in Christian music. I saw how fast God could take you from being a dysfunctional, chaotic mess into someone who actually was very functional. Man, we would get those kids in those venues and give altar calls. And Pastor Tim, you were someone who could appreciate the response of those kids just coming forward and just weeping and crying and just being moved by the power of God. Within months, going from a transformation process to becoming a transformer of life in others. That's God's plan for you. God's plan for you is not to spend month after year struggling in your marriage and struggling with addiction and struggling with all kinds of mental and emotional things. And God wants to transform you. And the power is here to do it. Will you let Him? Will you let Him? How many of us here today, I want us to pray. How many of us here today are in situations where we would say, I'm so sick and tired of this thing. But you understand, based on this sermon, the power does exist. The cube is here. Are you Transformer fans? The power does exist to transform your situation, your circumstances, your environment, your heart, your mind, your emotions, your marriage. It exists. Will you allow the power through the Word of God to begin to plant itself in your life and begin to change you and take you through this metamorphosis, take you from being a worm crawling on the ground to a butterfly who's beautifully flying above the earth? What a picture. Are you tired of struggling with that thing? Are you tired of that? Are you tired of it? I got tired of it. And some of you guys are tired of it too. Why don't you guys stand with me? Listen, God's plan for you is the butterfly, not the worm. God's plan for you is the garden in Eden, not the chaos. God's plan for you is to become this man who was walking in authority in the earth, not the dust. Where we differ from creation is that God spoke to creation and it automatically responded, but to the man who had free will, it was going to be a completely different set of rules. God would speak, and He would speak purpose, and He would speak destiny, but the man got to choose whether he would receive that seed for himself. Adam and Eve decided to reject that seed, even though they were in the place of God. They did not receive the words of God. I'm your pastor, guys, and I love you. If you were here today and you say, man, I've been going through some stuff, Pastor Scott, and you know it because you've been involved in it with us. You've been working with us for a long time in some of these areas. There has been improvements, but it's taken so daggone long, you know. I just want you to understand that you're not being singled out and you're not alone today because more people than not are in your shoes here today. This is just the condition of humanity. We are struggling and toiling with things and God never intended on it working that way. You induce yourself into an environment of change and you allow the power of God to change you. You stay in that environment consistently. You stay plugged in and you let God change that thing. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, before you know it, you're producing fruit and you're functional and it's beautiful. Today we need to put ourselves in this environment. Because next week I want to take you down a little different road. I want to show you how that God has chosen you to be those Autobots. You are the transformers, but you can't be a transformer till you've been transformed. That doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight, but as long as you're in the process, it's good. Day 1, God finished. If you've read the book, you know my heart on this. Day 1, God finishes. The only thing that has happened is there's been light. All you can do is you can see the chaos better than you did at the start of day 1. That's all that's happened. It has not even improved the situation. In fact, it might even look worse at the end of day 1. And God said, it is good. What's He saying? He's saying, this is not what I want yet, but we're in the process, so it's good just because we're in the process. We're getting there. What do you guys want to get in the process? The process. The process. The process. So here's the people I'm talking to. If you're here today, first of all, and you say, my life is a mess, I know why my life is a mess, because I've never brought myself as a living sacrifice and given it to God and say, here, take my life and do whatever you want with it. That's some of y'all out there. Some of y'all that's even been going to church for a long time. That's you all. You've never brought your life and said, here, take my life and do with it what you want. You've been adding church to God, or you've been adding church to your life. You've been adding God to your life, but you've never added your life back to God. You've just been trying to add it to. You've never really given yourself away to Him. If you're here today, you say, I'm one of those people you talked about that the seed never gets settled in there because I'm in and I'm out and I'm never consistent and I've got all these worries and these things going on in my life when I leave here and it's choking out the seed and I want that to end. It's got to stop because I want to be transformed. I'm talking to you and I want to pray for you. It's not a value statement, it's a reality statement for our lives. And those of you that can think of specific things, they say, I'm tired of wrestling with this junk in my marriage. I'm tired of wrestling with this thing in my mind, in my emotions, with this drama thing, with this thing that's just been going on and on. Is it ever going to end? I'm tired. It's tearing me apart. This thing needs to change. I need a metamorphosis in my life. Whatever that thing is, I want to pray for you today. Now, all you people that just raised your hands and all of you that didn't, come up here. We're going to pray. Come on. We're doing good. I'm still going to get you in the restaurants. First people today. First ones in the restaurants. Isn't that good? We can have the transforming power of God here and not be like the churches that I grew up in. If God's going to show up, you've got to have a 4-hour service. I like this in the moment, the twinkling of an eye. God induces change. Induces change. Guys, while we're dabbling in the things of God, we're dabbling. We're dating God. While we're dating God, our destiny is passing us by. All these dreams that God has allowed you to have, beautiful, beautiful dreams. You can dream whatever you want for your life. God has given you the ability to do that. But it's passing you by. Because we're spending our whole life just trying to transform, waiting on something to change. And someday it's going to be better because my husband's going to wake up and he's going to be a new guy and my marriage will be fine. Or I'm going to wake up and my wife's finally going to be the wife I've always needed her to be, and then our marriage will be fine. This stuff is not realistic. My kids will wake up sane. Ain't going to happen. Not going to happen. They're crazy. You need to know that going in. There's nothing wrong with your kids that isn't wrong with all of our kids. We're processing them. It'll be okay. You and them will survive. Stay in the process. Things going on in your life, the dreams, the stuff, there's just stuff that you guys are wanting to get down the road to and you're not getting there because you're stuck right here in the same old drama, the same old fatigue, the same old stresses, the same old junk. That's not what God wants for you. We've got to let Him transform us because He has a destiny for you to become a transformer. You have been called to be an Autobot, but you can't be an Autobot till you get transformed. How many bumblebees have I got out there? Grab hands. Let's get transformed together. I wish I had one of those shocker things I could start right here with Bob and just go down from there. Boy, I felt that Pastor Scott, something happened to me today. Well, that's the beauty of the metamorphosis. You don't really see it happening, but one day the cocoon begins to move around, it begins to stretch, and something begins to bust out, and something beautiful now is seen. Today, Father, I am so